Good morning to our dear viewers. Welcome to another edition of The Other Perspective. This is Abel Eseru, your moderator of the show today. We are going to be discussing about the impact of political decisions on infrastructure development in Uganda. We do know that infrastructure is a key priority for the government of Uganda. During the past few years, infrastructure development has contributed immensely to increase productivity by facilitating efficient connectivity and easing the movement of goods and provisions of services. Currently, the infrastructure funding comprises of about 32.8% of the government's total annual expenditure. There are very many developments on the area of infrastructure that the government of Uganda has undertaken. For example, we have seen currently the Entebbe Kampala Express Highway, which is known as the world's most expensive road, is now being used, and the government is collecting fees from the users of the road. And we have also seen the revival of the Uganda Airlines, and we are seeing also the water transport has also been improved. And that's where we are going to base our discussions from. So we have three guests, panelists, who are going to be sharing with us their insights regarding the impact of political decisions on the infrastructure development in Uganda. We have Gerald Koraneza, who is a youth political activist, who is going to share with us his perspective. Gerald, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Abel, for hosting me. Good morning, dear viewers.
We shall also have Priska Wanyenya. Priska Wanyenya is a journalist who reports from Uganda's parliament, and she will also be with us today in the show. Priska, you're welcome.
Thank you, Abel. Good morning to our viewers. I'm so glad you hosted me again today. I don't take such an opportunity for granted.
And then we shall also have Mr. Henry Muguzi, who is an expert in the field of electoral democracy and also a human rights activist. Henry, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Abel. And of course, always a pleasure for me to be interacting with the rest of the colleagues, Priska and Gerard, and other, of course, also the listeners, and also to tell that I'm also a pro-democracy activist. So that should be clear. But a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So before we proceed, our viewers outside there, please follow us on Facebook, like our Facebook page, ACFIM Uganda, and also on YouTube, ACFIM Uganda, and then on Twitter, please follow us as ACFIM UG. So Henry, I will start with you. You have seen the government of Uganda has done some bit of work in form of developing the infrastructure in the country. We have seen the revival of the Uganda Airlines. We have seen the government has also now kickstarted the charging of fees from the Entebbe Kampala Express Highway, which costed US dollars $470 million, which is now known as the most expensive road on the entire world. How have the political decisions helped in the infrastructure development in Uganda?
Thank you very much, Abel, for that very interesting question. And also the theme for us to be interrogating the political decisions, the decisions on infrastructure development, to ask ourselves the question whether these decisions are informed by economics or they are informed by politics, and whether they can find space in the arena of economic logic or in the arena of political logic. The truth must be told that quite a number of a sizable chunk of investment has been made in the direction of infrastructure. The road network, I think the regime of Mr. Museveni shall be remembered for the roads they have opened up across the country. We also remember the bridges. I think critical of these being the Ginger Nile Bridge, which was recently concluded. The quality of it notwithstanding. The airport, we've been told now and then that's been expanded, although sometimes you reach the airport and say, but this is the same old airport. Where is the expansion? Until you are told what is there. So the expansion is not obvious, but when you are told, you can see a semblance of it. And so quite a number of infrastructure have been taken. But the bigger question would be, Abel and colleagues, is what is forming these? You spoke about the express highway, but I think you also fell short of mentioning the northern bypass, which I think is also one of the most expensive projects. It's been under construction for the last 20 years. And you wonder what kind of, and this road we're talking about is 20 kilometers long. So these, and you wonder why. Now, when you look at Kampala, for example, Kampala has 6,000 square kilometers, has 6,000 kilometers of roads, which only 2,000 is tarmacked. And yet, over 70% of the revenue collected comes from Kampala. And then you ask yourself, the decision to start Kampala of roads and take them elsewhere, is this an economic decision or is it a political decision? You have regions that have received roads, but these roads have not necessarily boosted or triggered or spurred, if you like, development. And then you ask yourself, was the decision to do this road and not the other informed by economics or by politics? I think the answer is, in a situation, in the context where a very high premium is attached onto regime survival, you can't help but conclude that most of the decisions on which infrastructure to prioritize in the national budget is informed, those decisions are informed largely by politics rather than economics. You spoke about that expressway. We were told just recently that in 3 days they had collected over 250 million shillings. And then you ask yourself, if that be true, what were they waiting for all along? And if that is the case, if we collected 250 million in 3 days, it means that in 1 year, we will have collected a sizable chunk. And maybe we can take that as a model to open up many other roads and charge money on it. You ask yourself a question. Uganda has for the longest time had one gateway to the sea, and that is the Ginger Road. Okay? I think it would have been obvious if it were economics that if I am taking over government in 1986, the first priority I would have given would be to open up the only gateway to the sea, which would have been either I open up the Ginger Road, Marababusia route, or I open up the Mutukula, route. But all those roads are in a deplorable state. And then you ask yourself, the reluctance to open up this road, never mind these roads, never mind that now the efforts to open up Ginger Expressway are being fast-tracked. But the decision to delay the works on these gateways to the sea, is it an economic decision or is it a political decision? Is the delay informed by politics or is it informed by economics? And therefore, along the way, you find that many decisions are being informed by politics. And the unfortunate thing, and as I conclude on this matter, Abel, is that we have seen over time that every time politics comes face to face with economics, politics captures economics. And when politics captures economics, the resultant decision doesn't always happen to be one that benefits the citizenry, but rather one that serves interests of regime longevity and the survival. I submit. Back to you, Abel.
Thank you, Henry. Now I want to bring on board Priska. Priska, you report at Parliament, and you know that Uganda worldwide has one of the most expensive roads of and that is the Entebbe Kampala Express Highway, which costed us over 476 million US dollars. And part of that money, large chunks of that money was contributed by China. 74% of it came from China. And also the contractors who worked on the road came from China. And Ugandans were left out. So it seems like the money went back to Chinese. What do you make of such a decision whereby we get loans from a country and then also we award the contracts for constructing the road to the same country? Where do the local contractors in Uganda, where do we leave the local contractors in Uganda? And how do you think they can benefit if the political leaders are getting loans and also giving out the contracts to those other countries to make those roads? Do you think Ugandans are benefiting or they are just being left outside?
Thanks, Abel. But if you have been critical about most of the contracts that are signed between China, that has always been the case. Because I remember in 2016 that there was a special audit conducted on the Entebbe Expressway. The Auditor General hired an external consultant who came before Kosase, that was headed by Katuntu at that time. And it's during that special audit that I got to know the road that was inside Junran, because from the genesis of it, it's China, the Chinese people who walked inside the offices of Yunnan told them, we can build for you the road to help you save the jam, reduce on the jam. They walked into with their briefcases, and UNRWA gave them the leeway to conduct the feasibility study, and China brought in the contractors, and still the consultants also were from China. So basically everything was done by China. And so back to some of the findings in the consultant's report, because he was with the committee throughout the time. And one of the things he told us that the price of the audit report revealed that the price of Entebbe Expressway was inflated by 57 billion shillings. So when you're computing, when you're talking about the 1 trillion that went into the construction of the, you know that someone out there walked away with 57 billion because the price was inflated by 57 trillion. From what I know is it was 16 million US dollars, but if you at the time we were doing the story, it was around 55, 56. So that is roughly 57 billion shillings. So that is, if you're now asking me about the essence or the benefit of the road, for me, the 57 alone, when I look at what the 57 billion would do in this country, that is why I don't think there is anything good that is going to come from that road. And even the consultant told us at the time that given the design, the road is not going to be in position to reduce the jam at Entebbe Road. And his findings have come because has the jam reduced on Entebbe Road. And when you try to compare, the consultant tried to compare the same road that was built by the same company, the CCC, in Ethiopia. Luimbaz, who is now the deputy ED at KCA, he was the director planning at UNRWA at that time before he was arrested over the corruption, the Katosi scandal. Luimbaz tried to defend the price and said that you cannot compare the road in Ethiopia to the expressway in Uganda, because the expressway in Uganda has swamps as opposed to the one in Ethiopia. But the consultant fired back and told them that the bridges you're talking about, that you're using as a basis for this price were unnecessarily wide. It's just as the same as the Kampala bypass. You know that right now they are modifying the what? They're modifying the roundabouts because they were also unnecessarily wide. Because they were wide and they shot up the price. Now even the thinning of the roundabout is also leading to the what? To another expense. So I saw the excitement of Ugandans, especially on Twitter, the platform I use so much. They were excited about the 250 million shillings that had been collected within 3 days. And to my mind, I was like, when Ugandans wake up in the morning and choose to be gullible, you cannot do anything about it because they are looking at they are looking at the 250 million. But we have had you have had a history of the PPP arrangements, government and the private sector, and we have seen how they have ended up. I think one of the only PPPs that has worked well is the First Technologies, the one for driving permits. I've not had so much wrote around it, but let me give you an example of the Rift Valley Railway. Currently, Uganda Railway is still battling with Rift Valley because they took some of their assets to Kenya. They have not been in position to recover them. And the other arrangement, the one that you can look at that is next to you, is Multiplex. In 2018, the Auditor General revealed that KCA has not been in position to recover money worth 400 million from Multiplex. So Multiplex has been collecting money, but he has not been remitting to KCA. That was by 2018, that was 400 million. The price must have shot. So I don't know where they are getting the excitement of thinking these people will do wonders, because with time you're going to hear stories from the other partner talking about we are our costs of doing business are high, we are not in position to remit funds. But anyway, we are going to give them a benefit of doubt, but I'm not going to join that gang of people who are excited that this arrangement, this money is going to be in position to do what? To pay up the loan, because I feel like I've seen it all. The faith I'm giving it is about 10%, but for the purposes of my own sanity, I think let me retain the 90% for myself, because I've seen a history. I've seen the history how it plays out in this whole arrangement.
Yeah, Priska, you just mentioned how some Ugandans are jubilating, but we all know that Uganda has to pay it's a loan of 40 years. So do you think when we have to pay a loan of 40 years for a road that we are using, and we have contracted even a French company to be collecting the toll fee, don't you think that road was just constructed to keep us captive, and other countries benefiting from it, and for us as Uganda, by the time we start benefiting from it, you might find that the road is no longer in good shape? And what would you think would that mean? Does that qualify the suggestion that most of our decisions are more political and are not economic in nature?
Exactly that. But you're talking about the loan being 40 years. You remember the contract was signed in 2020, and immediately the contract is signed, that is takes effect. So from 2020 to 2022, how many years have gone? So that is the time frame now that has remained on the loan. I think the Ugandans need to. I cannot stop them from being hopeful, but they need to tame their excitement and know the kind of government they are working in. And because government is always coming up with this argument, we are in position to clear our debt and what, but it's the rate at which they are paying. Because right now in the coming budget, they have set aside 15 trillion out of the 43 trillion. 15 trillion is going to pay loan interest and things like that. So at that rate, I don't know. And now we have all these loans from the Entebbe Expressway from the airport and the Karuma Dam and everything. My mind is stuck on the whole excitement. I don't know. Do the people who get excited take time to think through critically the issues they're getting excited about? I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, thank you. Gerald, I want now to bring you on board. You've just had, we are having in our national budget of 44.7 trillion. We are going to be paying about 15 trillion for debt repayment. And we are still borrowing to finance the construction of most of our infrastructure. And some of these loans come with very harsh terms, but still our political leaders still go for them. Why is it that we are still continuing to borrow to develop some of these roads, yet the term do not really benefit us as a country? And we know that we are in a country whereby most of the money we borrow sometimes don't end up doing the things they have been borrowed for. What's your take on that?
Thank you so much, Abel, for that good question. For any country in the world to achieve a socio-economic development, it must put a lot of efforts in infrastructure development. So, in my opinion, actually, infrastructure development is one of the key things that fosters growth and development of every other country. Borrowing loans so that we can finance our infrastructure, it is okay with it. I find it okay with it. But the challenge comes on how the terms and conditions and how we utilize these very funds that is meant for this road development and infrastructure development. Uganda, we've had we've not done the capacity building at all. Like for instance, like these big infrastructures, like for instance, road constructions, we've not increased our capacity. That we can be able to get like these big projects that we can do them by ourselves. So that at least these very big companies like Chinese, we've seen these Enago, starting these British companies who are actually repatriating. They are taking all this money that we are using. So I think the decisions, that we do make when we are signing off these very contracts, somehow, somewhere, we lose it. We lose it off. It is, of course, like economic decision. Those very economic decision of developing like these very ports. Uganda, we are not nearby the sea, so like these very ports. These goods and services, we need them. So we need to develop, like the air transport. These very ports, like expanding the Entebbe, this project, the Kabare, developing the Hoima, this Kabare airport. Those are key infrastructures that we see that could contribute to our development. But the terms and conditions, we need to build the capacity as the country so that we train our specialists, our people, our population, equipping them with the skills that all of the resources, the profits can remain here, and we don't see losing it off. Over to you, Abir.
Government has revived the Uganda Airlines, but there are very many issues that have been taking place within the very airlines that were revived. I think that they were supposed to help boost Uganda's growth in the airline industry, but we have seen issues concerning the management of the airlines. We have had issues concerning the boards and the staff members. They are fighting for how to put people to be part of the airlines. But we have also seen issues concerning the acquisition of some of the planes that were used have also been queried, because some of the planes that were acquired were substandard and were not effective and efficient enough. Why is it that we are continuing to try to progress in terms of infrastructure development, but some of the decisions we take don't necessarily reflect the political will to develop? Some people use such projects to just steal money from the taxpayers and enrich themselves instead of engaging in infrastructure development that benefits the entire country. Some of them are engaging in it to just loot the resources of the country. Why are we in such a state?
Thank you very much, Abel. I was reading a report produced by the Economic Policy Research Center at Makerere University, EPRC, and the report is on on financing infrastructure development in Uganda. I think it was put out in 2017. This report highlights a number of things, and it touches part of what Priska and Gerard Bartlett shared. It's the situation we find ourselves in as a country. The situation is that increasingly concessional development financing from traditional donors who used to give us grants sometimes has significantly decreased. When it significantly decreases, it means that countries like Uganda find themselves in a situation where they have no choice but to go for the more commercial loans, and these happen to be coming from China. You will understand that China is this country that, and I like it when Priska says they are the ones who came up with the very idea of let us construct Entebbe Expressway. It means that they have also taken over the role of planning, procurement planning in UNRWA. But China is this country that has gone across the continent in Africa. They have built stadiums. They've built standard gauge railways. They are the ones constructing expressways. I was in Nairobi recently, and I saw they are constructing a flyover that is Airport Expressway, Nairobi Jomo Kenyatta Airport Expressway. So they've constructed expressways everywhere, including, and then they have constructed dams. So they've gone everywhere and acted in a copycat style and constructed this. The challenge is that the rates at which we are borrowing this money are too high, and this complicates debt sustainability in Uganda. So as it is now, Uganda is heavily indebted. We notice that from 2000, over the last 20 years, from there 2000 to date, Uganda has contracted more debt than it contracted in 40 years from independence to the year 2000, when Uganda got debt relief. So therefore, the situation is not a good one. But also there's the element of the high cost of corruption. The report by EPRC points out that the unit cost of every construction infrastructure in Uganda is much higher than it is in the rest of the countries within which which are bordering us in the region. It's much higher. Our unit cost of construction of this infrastructure is higher than it is in Kenya, higher than it is in Tanzania, higher than it is in Burundi, higher than it is in Rwanda. The question is why? And of course, you want to go very far to find answers, because the answers lie in the corruption that has so infested these infrastructures, where you have men and women that come to these public institutions to plan for infrastructure, and they shall only prioritize that infrastructure from which they can reap big. And therefore, corruption notwithstanding, when we go to the question you asked of the airport, of course, Uganda is a country that is synonymous with the things that are not so, whose standard is not so nice. Remember, there was a time in the past when we procured uniforms that could not fit even the children of the soldiers. And then we went on to procure the helicopters, the choppers, military choppers that could not even get off the ground. We have gone ahead and procured locomotives that cannot fit on our rails. You see, in Nigeria, our brothers in Nigeria have this proverb that says that if you are a lizard in your home, there is no way you are going to become a crocodile out. So if you are a lizard, you remain a lizard. That's why they say na lizard in, na lizardo. It means therefore that a country that has been synonymous, a government or whatever, that institutions that have been synonymous with these kinds of shoddy and substandard things, would you expect them to deliver first-class aircrafts? Obviously not. But let's give them the benefit of doubt that they did. But when you look at how they are managing it, who decides who gets to be recruited? Are the decisions on who gets to be recruited to the board of Uganda Airlines, who gets to be recruited in the executive office, the people that get to work there, is the decision to recruit these informed by know-how or by know-who? And who is supervising them? And how are we going to make sure that the running of Uganda Airlines is insulated from what we see happening in other institutions? Because in other institutions, you have a junior having much power than the senior. How do we make sure this does not overlap? This kind of cancer does not overlap there. And then you spoke about the political will. The people that are taking these decisions, are they taking these decisions to advance Uganda economically, or are they taking these decisions to make sure that they get to be seen to be doing something in order to entrench their stay in power and get political capital from this? So these are some of the things that we grapple with as citizens, but the question is, it still remains to be seen how far we shall go. But the question of infrastructure, the way we are managing and taking decisions, the way we are failing to draw a clear distinction between a decision that would inform and promote economics and a decision that would inform and entrench politics, we are having a problem. And the fusion between the two are buttressed by the corruption and how the money from corruption comes back to finance politics and then entrench and extend the stay of the regime in power. All these things combine to militate against the taking of decisions that would take Uganda to middle income status. Back to you, Abel.
Thank you so much, Henry. We are now going to go for a brief break, and then we shall return.
Welcome, my people. A cup of coffee, please. There is tea, everything, snacks are on the way.
Yeah, thanks, but the reason that's why we are here, our people need different services. We at least need an ambulance at every center.
My sub-county is the forest. We used to depend on the former MP's vehicle, but when he lost his elections, he took away the vehicle.
Of course.
So what does that mean?
Use your budget as a district to procure the ambulances.
If I could, I would. But unfortunately, government operates differently.
I'm saying, Chairperson, this is very serious and urgent.
Yes, I know. And why are they called local leaders then?
Local government.
You people, who sent you here?
I know, of course. We are concerned citizens who are watching people dying every day.
We've lost our beloved ones just because of poor health services.
Something has to be done.
You are right. Something has to be done,
Yes.
and very fast.
Yes.
That's transport for you. Go back.
But
All your concerns are taken care of. I will handle.
But
Have a
Chairman,
safe journey.
Thank you so much.
but this man seems to undermine our cause as to why we're here.
No, don't misunderstand me. This is just transport, no strings attached.
Chairman, we came here to discuss and find solution to our problems. But it seems you don't want to engage with us. Let's go and mobilize people, and you will see how serious we are.
Good citizens, let us always hold our leaders accountable. Leadership is a service, not a privilege.
Contribute today at www.politicalfinanceafrica.org/donate. Together, we can contribute towards enhancing democracy as a viable system of governance in Uganda.
Welcome back from that break. We are today discussing about the impact of political decisions on infrastructural development in Uganda. Before we went for the break, Henry was tackling issues concerning how some of these constructors end up getting some of these contracts, and there was an element of quid pro quo in it. So I want Henry to elaborate more on that, because I know you've traversed the country and you've seen the kind of roads that have been constructed, and their lifespan is not so long. You find the road from, for example, Pakwash to Arua, which you would expect would take a lifespan of maybe 40 years, but in a period of like 10 years, you go back and find that the road is very vague, and you ask yourself, did we borrow to construct such roads, or there's somewhere where some people are tending to just do things because maybe they know the people in power, and maybe they finance some of the activities in terms of campaigns? Should we say we should blame the shoddy work on quid pro quo contracting?
Thank you, Abel. Good question again. You see, one of the painful things is for us to borrow money from the Chinese at very commercial rates of paying back, and get to heap this burden on the very Ugandans that must pay taxes and pay back these loans, okay, with pain and over generations. And then we construct a road that presumably should have been in place for 15, 20 years. But after 10 years or 8, this road is done. I remember if you that road from Kona Kamdini to Lira, for example, that road. And the reason I'm saying that road is because I know my colleagues from Lango sub-region are planning to do a demonstration of a nude demonstration on the offices of the World Bank, because that road is outrageous. Now that road took a long time to construct. I think the company that won that tender is the one that had previously worked on Iganga Tirinyi Mbale Road. So that company is awarded that road. It took for them forever. There were demonstrations by citizens over the delay in completing that road. But hardly 10 years after it was constructed, the road broke down. Today it is near to impassable. People have lost lives on that road. You see, but we have not finished paying back that debt. And therefore, it's annoying. So the thing is, why are we in a situation we are in today? Which is why I pointed out the issue of corruption, because this money gets to be eaten, and you wonder why the people that have responsibility to follow up on this money, the people that are supposed to ensure that the road is of the quality that it's supposed to have, get to be compromised. It's because they have eaten, and because this money sometimes has been eaten by people that are as big as that are larger than life. People that are larger than life, and I suspect that some of this money ends up also financing politics. So if this money from the infrastructure, this money comes back and finances politics, because we have heard quite often that somebody says that, look, leave my Chinese alone. So you want, I know, for example, in Kampala, the Rubiji Road, that Rubiji Road was given to, no, not Rubiji Road, the wetland, what is it called? The river, Rubiji. They are supposed to do some clearance on there to make sure that they stop the flooding that has been happening. The Chinese company that was constructed, has failed until now to deliver the job on time. I know that the Chinese companies that worked on the Acacia Road were dilly-dallying, and I remember so vividly that the executive director of Kampala Capital City Authority had to go and have nasty exchanges with these companies. So you see companies that awarded roads, but these companies are not are not competent enough to deliver the quality that we need, and they continue to get contracts. And you ask yourself, who is taking these decisions? Is the taking of these decisions informed by politics, or is it informed by economics? And therefore, so at the end of the day, the loser is us, the Ugandans. The projects are done, delivered, they are socially done. The monitoring, the supervision on the ground is so poor. You get to see a road such as the expressway. They have inserted, for example, what is supposed to be reflectors, metallic reflectors onto the road, but these things don't even reflect anything. It means, therefore, they've put there things that look like reflectors. You know, these metallic things they put in the road. I have also seen them on the bypass. Who is this supervisor, government supervisor, who is allowing shoddy things to be put on the road? Why are they not raising it? There is a simple answer. They've been compromised. Compromised with what? The corruption we're talking about. So corruption has eaten into the very fabric of our supervisory function, and is the reason that we find ourselves in a situation where we have borrowed money to construct an infrastructure project, whether it is transport infrastructure, whether it is electricity infrastructure, which is supposed to have lasted for 20 years. It gets broken down after less than 10 years, and then we have to borrow again before we finish. We even finish paying back the loan that did the other one. We have to borrow again. We find ourselves in a vicious cycle of borrowing, and we bury ourselves into a hole from which we may not get ourselves out over the next 50 years. So the situation is really horrible and deplorable. Back to you, Abel.
Thank you. I don't know whether Priska is on, but I wanted you to carry on from Henry's submission. We've just had him discuss about issues of corruption, and we have seen the Auditor General also has highlighted the issues of corruption, which are posed by delay in the procurement processes and also some other individuals that just swindle this money. From your reports from Parliament, we do know that most of the times, these reports end up some of the committees in Parliament scrutinize more and maybe call for these people to be held accountable for where this money went. How have some of these committees helped in terms of when the Attorney General, when the Auditor General says that we have lost, Uganda loses billions of money because of the delays and corruption in the infrastructure sector? Do they take action in terms of maybe following up and also investigating more and helping in terms of maybe calling these people to account more and ask where this money has gone? Or they also, because we know some of the politicians in Uganda say that they sit in the same dining table. So whoever is got because of corruption, if you don't speak to their language, then you are the one who will be taken in. But if you speak their language, they'll let you go free. What have they done so far?
I think one of the reports that helped save us as a country was was the one the Auditor General wrote on deemed energy. Deemed energy is the technical word for unconsumed power. And when he was tabling his report in February 2020, he noted that Uganda has unused power to a tune of 110 billion. It's just there lying idle. And and you remember that was the same time government had brought a proposal to construct another electric hydro dam on Maction Falls. So you remember they debate it because and we were lucky at the time because the then speaker Kadaga was someone who was kind of passionate about environment, and she put up a spirited fight, then ordered the Committee of Natural Resources to investigate. And the committee came up and said, we are not agreeing to this, to the construction of the dam. And they cited the report from the Auditor General of the deemed energy. And because when you look at even we have not yet started using the power at Karuma. We have not started using the power at Isimba because the construction dates keep on shifting. They come and tell you we are at 98 this percent, and so although we know that the powers that be at plot one usually have a big control on what happens, and so, but that is one of one of the few moments that I've seen that the country has been saved by Parliament, because if the committee chairperson is under tight pressure to ensure that this dam is constructed, but then the committee kind of I think we have to give them credit for such a report that's standing firm and say no, we cannot construct another dam, yet we have failed to consume the already energy that we have. And one of the recommendations that the Auditor General made is for the construction of the transmission lines, because to enable what to enable more Ugandans get access to the electricity. And when you look at yesterday, the Ministry of Energy was asking for money to buy out the remaining contract on Umeme, but the MPs have also rejected that it's the amount was about 74 billion, something like that. I'm not so certain of the figure, but that is the information coming up, because electricity is also infrastructure. And it's one of the things that when you look at UNRA is taking about 5 trillion, the roads and construction, infrastructure is taking 5 trillion, energy I think they have about 2 trillion in the next budget. So they are also they are taking one of the biggest chunks in the budget. So when we are looking at the infrastructure, we tend to put more emphasis on the roads, and we forget the other things like the rail, the power, and yet they are consuming huge chunks of our budget. Now, when you look at the rail, I'm one of those people who use a train every evening, and it's quite fast, but when you look at the information coming from the Uganda Rail of buying wagons at a higher, older wagons at a higher price than newer wagons. At the time, I thought I had faith in the rail that it would kind of save us, but now with that information coming up, and there is a plan of them revamping the whole rail system up to Kasese, the north. But if the theft has started on the smaller amount, of course, billions is not, but the revamping is going to take over 1 trillion. So if they're starting with the small billions, you can imagine how much money is going to be wasted in 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 the whole thing. But where Henry hinted at the gateway to the sea, the Ginger Highway. I remember when Parliament asked government to explain why the construction of the Ginger Expressway hasn't yet taken place. The argument was they are still negotiating the PPP agreement, and so the MPs who take the eastern route asked that why should you drag in the PPP agreement on our road, yet the other roads government has found money for it. So the debate took the tribal settlements, and I remember Nagala Mafami saying Western Uganda has very good roads, and the only thing that comes from Western Uganda are onions. So and then you remember both the state minister for is it defense now? He was the chairman legal by then. He argued that the potholes are interfering with their marriages. And at that time, he was going through a divorce. So he was talking about the jam on Ginger Highway, why the express. His argument was if the expressway is constructed, probably many marriages will be saved because they are spending so much time in the jam and not fulfilling their responsibility of the conjugal rights in their bedroom. So but the mere fact that government has ignored Ginger Road, because when you look at the repairs, the recent repairs are supposed to stretch from, I think, Spear up to, I don't know whether Mukono or Mabira, but they keep on repairing the road in sections. But you know that road, I don't know, it starts from around Kitgum House, I'm not such Ototal around there, up to the border, Malaba or Tororo. But even the repairs are taking partial repairs. And even when you look at the stretch from Spear up to Mukono, the repairs are also taking time because they're repairing in certain sections, and that's why some people are wondering that what if that the gateway was coming from a certain part of the country, will they be ignoring it like it is being ignored? So the infrastructure development, the debate on the infrastructure development has also now taken a tribal stand now. People now keep on thinking that the West has more. If the road was from the West, probably it would be better. And when you even look at the proportion, the North, the people from Lango region have been complaining about the Camden Road, and now for those people who are now going to Amulata and Dokolo, they are forced to use the ferry. And at one time use the ferry, but do you know what happens at the ferry? Is that there is a time we were forced on our return. There is a time we were forced to wait for over 3 hours because apparently the LC5 had called. He's saying he was in a meeting and the ferry should not take off until. So we had to wait for him to finalize his meetings. I don't know whether they were the clan meetings or what, but that is what is happening. So
so unfortunate.
So one individual is in position to hold a ferry for about 2 or 3 hours. This is something that people up country are going through. But imagine if that was it. Imagine making. So I'm imagining you holding a ferry. If Port Bell had a ferry from Port Bell to Katosi, imagine the wrath you face if you. But the people there when during that instance, they looked like they are used to it, like it's common. And I mean, I was almost going mad with the people who went. I was like, it was later on that we explained that the LC5 had told them you cannot set off until I arrive. So this whole debate on, so that is the what we should know is now the debate has moved from the politicians now to now talking to the tribal sentiments now. And it is partly when you look at the tribal, the anarchy that is underlying the tribal, that is also something that they are going to use actually, yeah, in the near future.
Thank you so much, Priska. Now, as we conclude, because we have run out of, we are running out of our time, I want us to discuss about, the president came out with a directive because after seeing whatever is happening through the delays in the construction in the infrastructure sector and also the corruption that is now endemic in that sector. He proposed that the military should now take over most of the constructions in the infrastructure sector because he thinks that the military is more swift and fast in terms of executing whatever they are told to do. What do you think? What do you make of such a decision? Will it help really cure the delays and also the corruption that is in the system, or it's just part of militarizing the entire Uganda? Because we have seen it start slowly. As you give your conclusive remarks, I will start with you, Henry.
Thank you, Abel. Of course, there is a common adage that if someone is holding a hammer, everything they see looks like a nail, and therefore they will keep using the hammer, even when the hammer is not the most suited tool. I think for the regime, which keeps reminding us about their Bush war days and how they remain behaving like Bushmen, they've continued to behave militarily. Of course, this is not to discount the role and the patriotism of the men and women in uniform. They've done a great job. They have done a great job when it came to providing their skills as army doctors when we were attacked, when we were at the peak of COVID-19 pandemic. But you see, to assume that the military, the men and women in uniform come from a different society, I think is to misunderstand things, because these military men come from the same families that have been infested by corruption. These men and women and men in uniform live in the same society as we do, a society that seems to vilify men of integrity and glorifies the thieves. They live in the same society that demands that as a man of a certain age, you must have a house and not one, you must have an apartment building, and you must have a vehicle, and you must have this, and your children must go to this school. They live with these challenges. So I'm not certain that the military is necessarily insulated of the corruption. And therefore, if the reason for going military is because of the desire to deal with corruption, I think that has to be rethought. So in my final parting shot is that Uganda, I think, has to explore many other options as opposed to going down the path of borrowing perpetually from China. We can borrow a lesson from Ethiopia. Ethiopia has been tapping into diaspora bonds. I think that dam, the so-called Renaissance Dam, was constructed in 2011 in Ethiopia, was constructed because of bonds. I think government has to tap more into the remittances of these Ugandans living in diaspora as a way of raising capital. This capital can be used to finance infrastructure at concessional rates. I should stop there, and it's been a pleasure, Abel. Bye.
Thank you so much, Henry. Gerald, your parting shot?
Abel, it has been a very good discussion. Like these big infrastructures have been a window for politicians to rob, to steal public resources. Of course, considering like projects like USMAID project, Uganda Support Municipal Infrastructure projects, like these ones that are in charge of developing markets, these ones of municipal roads, those roll-ups in a market the district governors, those councillors, they usually distribute themselves, these lockups. So we see they usually take advantage of such big projects, to accumulate wealth and resources. As I do, of course, do a parting shot, Ugandans, we need to embrace the local content aspect. If an infrastructure, a big project like like oil project that is coming up, we need to train our local labor. I usually get annoyed to see like an infrastructure like road development. Even a mere casual laborer is coming from a China who is operating, like for instance, a wheel grader, or these people who are on the road. So those are the things that annoys me, to find even a local person doesn't have even a necessary skills, to work in such kind of sectors. So the local content bit, by training the Ugandans, the ordinary citizens who are unemployed, to equip them necessary skills that they can work in these very big sectors. I think infrastructure is a very good thing that determines growth and development. We need to look at these very loans, see the funding modality. The politicians, they usually give like these contracts to these contractors to get kickbacks. Of course, like some of these contractors, it is alleged that they support, politicians. They do bankroll them, so that when they win, like when they go occupy like these public offices, they get the tenders. So we shouldn't look at those kickbacks in return. So we should do see the terms and conditions of when we are awarding the contracts, these loans that we are signing, to ensure that when we are paying back, it doesn't cost us much. Otherwise, thank you so much for having me. It has been a great pleasure to be part of your show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gerald. Priska, your parting shot. You are muted. Mute yourself.
I think that if UNRWA is to stick to the laid out modalities in the Road Act on the collection of tolls on the Entebbe Expressway, it will go a long way of lifting off the burden of the paying of that loan. Because if we go by the figures that are being projected at the 250 million, it will help us. I just need them to stand firm against, because that we've seen many pleas of doctors, army asking to be exempted. I think anyone who wants to be exempted from paying the toll fee, they should use the old road, the old Entebbe. If you don't have money, don't go to the expressway, use the old road. I think that let just UNRWA stick by the rules in the game. There are three people: the army, the ambulance as the presidential convoy. The rest, whether I saw someone asking if the Kabaka also has to pay the toll fee because the road is in his land. But let UNRWA stick by the rules. I think that is all. That will help us in the solving the indebtedness and the road infrastructure. Thank you very much for hosting me again.
Thank you so much, Priska, Henry, and Gerald, for your insights. And we also want to thank our dear viewers from wherever you are. It has been a pleasure having all of you. So today we are coming to one end of the other perspective. But please don't forget to follow us on Facebook at ACFIM. Our YouTube is ACFIM Uganda, and on Twitter is ACFIM UG. Follow us and continue the discussion. We shall again have another edition next week. So please keep following us and tuned in. We appreciate all your efforts and whatever you're doing, wherever you are. Thank you. And don't forget that you can also follow us on our various websites at Political Finance Uganda. We are always available, and you can reach out to us on any other thing. Thank you so much.